Welcome to Imposter Monkey, where we bring you testimonies on imposter syndrome and how to overcome it. Today, I have with me my very good friend Josh, who I've known for quite some time. Josh and I met at CrossFit back in the day, pre-pandemic, and we've kept contact and we're still friends as of, till today. Welcome, Josh. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself?
So let's see, guy of many talents, I guess. Big fitness guy. I've been, I went to school for kinesiology. I've been involved in CrossFit for the better part of 13 years, coaching for a little over 5, so I know my way around movement. Love cars. That's one of the other things that Izzy and I connected on. Anime, Japanese stuff, I'm just kind of that guy. I mean, coming from the Bay Area, you can expect that, so.
All right, Josh, why don't you tell me, from your experiences, what are some challenges that you faced in regards to imposter syndrome?
Well, when it comes to imposter syndrome, I feel like, it all depends on what I'm getting myself into. If it's something I truly want, I feel that sometimes me wanting something so bad gets in the way of my performance for what I need to do to get to where I need to be comfortable in that position, or what have you. I feel like that can be kind of a crippling effect, right? Like let's say for instance you're going for a job and it's a job you truly want, and deep down you're a great candidate for it, right? But let's say it's a job with a salary that's life-changing for you. If you, for instance, come from a place where you're not used to having a lot of money, or this new career would be a chance for you to sort of set the stage to build in life, it's easy to get caught up in, I really hope I make a good impression, or I hope that I play my cards right, and every step of the way in the hiring process or whatever. But oftentimes, if you're able to kind of dial back and just stay focused on the little bits that lead up to that, I think it takes the edge off. I think that makes it a little bit easier for you to kind of dial back. But as far as, imposter syndrome goes, I think that that's mostly a result of letting your imagination run wild, right? Because there's so many hypotheticals.
So it's kind of what you're saying is that we kind of just bring it upon ourselves, right? So yeah. we're our own biggest critic, and just stop ourselves from knowing kind of what value we could bring, right? And like you're saying in regards to the job.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like the people who are their own worst critics are often the people who are driven and trying to get to the next level and really push hard in life. So it kind of comes with the territory in this day and age, yeah.
So let's say, you face these challenges like that, or these thoughts that come to mind. What do you do personally in order to overcome it?
I hate to say that I look for external motivators, but that's been my experience, and it hasn't been something that I've actively sought out, but it's been more of a byproduct and something that I've learned to embrace. As humans, we're social creatures. We're not meant to be on an island. I have had people from my foster mom who kind of reminded me where I came from, and the stuff that I've overcome kind of reignite the fire that's dude, you've made it far in life, and this is worth celebrating. You're doing great. This is, you deserve what's coming to you, kind of thing. To people who I look up to as far as seeking out content, right? Somebody I follow by the name of Bedros Keuilian just kind of gets my mind in the right state of mind, for lack of a better word, as far as playing my cards right financially, trying to get my house in order and live congruently to the man I want to become.
So what you're saying is that, in a way, your environment and who you're around with kind of influences you overcoming that imposter syndrome, right? Because you're saying that videos, I'm sure that's reassuring. Mm-hmm. And you said your foster mom, right?
Yeah.
She helps put those good thoughts, the good energy towards you to be oh, that's right, she's right? I could overcome this. I don't have to bring myself down and be oh, can I do this? Can I not do this?
So I guess to sum it all up, at least in my experience, let's say there's a position I'm aiming for, right? I kind of put that on a pedestal, right? And so then the dialogue in my head becomes, am I worthy of that? But instead, what I felt really has helped me kind of be a little bit more confident and more sure-footed in the process is, instead of putting, that position that I want, for example, on a pedestal, or let's say I was dating or that person I'm super into, putting them on a pedestal, Instead, I'm putting the version of myself, my future self, on a pedestal. Like, that person is someone I strive to become. So for me, when I think about it that way, I start to kind of be a little bit more confident, because I know that the person who I want to become is going to be someone who could really make an impact and help and be confident and do a lot of good for other people. And that gives me happiness and confidence to know that, like, hey, that's, you know, who knows how far out that's going to be, but it's going to be, right? And if I know that that's where I'll inevitably end up, I can be a little bit more confident along the way, because I know my intentions are good, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So to kind of bring that back, you're saying you were saying you put the job in a pedestal. Can you, like, can we go back to that and you kind of elaborate what you mean? Or you're saying you want to avoid putting that like job, that like dream job, or like that dream significant other on a pedestal?
Yeah, it's sort of to that to the latter there. Like, you want to avoid putting it on a pedestal,
Got
because
it. Okay.
sure, it, you know, let's take a position, for instance. It could be life changing depending on the salary, right? And you want that desperately, right? You really want it, you know, because it's how we move forward in this society. But you can't let your desire be so big that it takes away from your ability to be yourself authentically. Because I feel like, you know, in certain situations, like interviewing, for instance, if you're so locked up on the end result that you can't even communicate the way that you normally would, or tell your story, which is all it comes down to when it comes to interviewing for jobs, is telling your story and how you can, you know, put your unique spin on whatever it is you're going for. Then you leave that process knowing that you didn't quite sell yourself, you know, and I feel like it's kind of a tragedy.
You were saying in the job, right? You go into the interview and you sometimes put up a front.
Right.
And like, I get it. You sometimes need to put up a front to get into that job.
Sure.
So, you know what I mean? It's a game in a way sometimes.
Yeah.
But you also hit a good point. It's like, you're not being your authentic self. So in reality, it's a facade.
Yes.
Right? So they don't get to experience the real you, or like, you know, what, basically how much value you could bring, let's say, to that position, right? So,
Right.
so like, I get there's two parts to it of like, yeah, you have to like play the part for like a certain job, but also
Sure.
you got to be true to yourself. Be like, because then if you're just fake at a job, then you might be unhappy or it might not work out. But yeah, it was more of like you building on putting those jobs in a pedestal, or like that significant other, to have, like, you know, as two examples.
Right.
And then just like, if you could expand on that. But I think you hit it pretty good, right? You put that job on pedestal, so you end up being fake, right?
Yes.
You end up being an imposter.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so no, that's good. What else have you found yourself going to like overcome it? Is there something else that you could think of?
You know, I would have to say experience. You know, like, I keep using the job thing as an example because it's pretty relevant in my life right now. You know, let's take interviewing, for example. It's a skill, right? And at first, if you haven't nurtured that skill, it's terrifying, because you're kind of going in and you've had as much time to interview, or research the company that you're interviewing for, and you still feel like there's missing information, right? Like, you can't quite be as confident because you don't have years of experience in whatever field. But I feel like, you know, kind of diving in head first and getting some experience in whatever it is that you might feel. But in regards to interviewing, because, you know, the job search is very much relevant in my life right now, I feel like the more experience I've had in just interviewing alone or getting to know people in the field that I'm going into, the more confident I feel. You know, I'll be honest, I felt like with the position I was applying for prior to the one that I'm in the process with now, I felt like I had to be on my toes a lot. You know, maybe a lot of that was just due to lack of experience, but long story short, being where I am now and going for the same position but with a different company, I felt so much more at home. You know, there's just little things, maybe it was just the way that people interacted with me at that particular company, but I just felt more okay to be myself. You know, and I feel like if, you know, one company can make me feel like I'm on edge, and another one will make me feel like, you know, I can kind of like relax my shoulders a bit, and then that might be the one I might want to work for. And not to allude to that job might be easier, but to say that the culture might fit a little bit better, you know. So to answer your question, I feel like a little bit of experience, and then like chasing the right avenue in whatever pursuit that you're going for, to kind of help alleviate that imposter syndrome. You know, there's people who will kind of engage with you and make you feel welcome, versus standing on the other end of the desk and looking at you as if you have to prove yourself that you're worthy.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. I like that. So basically who you're surrounding yourself with, if you're put more out of comfort. So you said we're social creatures, and I feel not only with like your work environment, but like your personal environment, who you're surrounded with plays a big role, right? You just said, right, if you're in a different setting where you feel more at ease, more comfortable, experience, but also your setting.
Sure.
So like your environment, that really takes it's a big part of you potentially experiencing imposter syndrome or actually being able to overcome it, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love that. Like I've read in many books where they do explain how important your social circle and like your environment is. But no, yeah, that's great. Why don't you tell me, how has your life been different ever since you've implemented these actions to overcome imposter syndrome versus when you didn't take any action to look into overcoming imposter syndrome?
Oh, dude, game changers. So a couple different strategies, right? The ones that I listed, there's also one that I'm gonna go out on a limb to say, because I was skeptical about it. But have you ever heard of power poses?
I have, yeah, power poses.
They're a thing. I kid you not, they are a thing. So somebody at the gym, he put me on to a TED Talk, like power poses by Amy Cuddy or whatever. Anyway, so like literally before an interview, I'll stand either in the parking lot where no one can see me, and if they see me, I kind of don't care, where I'm literally just like wide stance, fists on my waist, and I'm like this for a while, like literally like 2 to 5 minutes, and I go in and I'm like, sure, I'm still nervous, but after I do my power pose, I go in and I'm sitting there, right, and I'm focusing on relaxing my shoulders, taking some deep breaths, and I'm like, all right, so I have my strategy, right? they always talk about the mind tricking the body, right? But body tricking the mind is totally a thing. Don't believe me? Try it, I swear to God. But doing that, making sure I'm like deep breathing through my stomach so that I don't like rack up my nerves. Game changers. Game changers in the way that like after an interview, I walked out like, holy crap, I was able to articulate myself well. I was able to actually be myself. I've had some of the best interviews of my life after doing those strategies, and just kind of came home like, whoa, I did it, It was a sign that, one, I not only did my research about the company and I felt confident going in, but two, that the strategies I tried worked, right? And don't get me wrong, I was inside my head the whole entire time. I'm freaking out. I'm like, dude, I hope I get this job. But no, at the same time, I felt like I had strategies to combat my any anxiety about the process versus, not taking any steps to look into stuff, not practicing anything beforehand. I've even gone as far as to making sure I wake up extra early to get a workout until really just do an energy dump first thing in the morning, so I'm not overhyped when the time comes, right? But I mean, doing all those strategies and actually coming out of that winning versus not doing anything and being like, oh, I bombed that, right? Game changers. You need to have strategies to combat your imposter syndrome, or for me, it takes shape in the form of anxiety, right? So you have to have a strategy. It's important.
How do you believe that doing some power poses prior to an interview, for example, has helped you out to overcome imposter syndrome?
I feel like doing the power poses makes me feel like myself on my best day. And myself on my best day, I'm looking people in the eye all the time, smiling, and even if I didn't get a smile or a nod back, that doesn't throw me off, right? I keep dishing them out because I'm trying to put that good energy out there so that I can kind of manifest that, and it will come back around and with the right person, right? But it allows me to be myself 100%. I feel like, for instance, after that power pose, I'm walking with my chest tall, my shoulders back, and it's just a different stance that I have, and I feel like I'm more sure-footed, meaning like I feel like my feet are occupying a little bit more of my shoe, and I'm walking with care versus just kind of moving my feet, right? I'm a little bit more aware. It's crazy what just a little bit of a physiological change will do. I think even in the TED Talk, they talked about how they had participants, right? People who did the power poses and people who kind of shrunk up, and then they went into a job interview, a pseudo interview, and the people who were the audience that were watching them would always hire the people who did the power poses, even though they didn't know that they did the power poses or which group did the shrinking up, right? You make yourself bigger, you feel bigger, right? And bigger in a good way. I think that all just comes down to your personality, but for me, bigger means confident.
It's like putting that good energy out there. You're bringing forth better, stronger energy versus you kind of just going down with weak energy, right? So the energy is important.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right, Josh, what final words would you leave with the viewers in regards to imposter syndrome, overcoming it, or whatever wise words you want to give them?
I'd say whatever it is you're insecure about that might lead to feeling like you have imposter syndrome, just remember that everyone starts somewhere, which is so vague to say, right? But, you know, for instance, when I was in college and there would be a big exam coming up that I needed to pass because the class wasn't offered until another year, and if I didn't pass the exam, I wouldn't pass the class and whatever. It felt like my whole life was that exam, right? But I had a counselor, someone who was really close to me while I was in college, tell me that, you know, this might seem like everything, but in the grand scheme of things, college is only about like, you know, 4 to 6 years out of your life. And after that, you're not going to remember how stressful this exam was. It helps, my point, it helps to zoom out, to try to remember that like whatever it is that you're going through is small, right? You're probably not going to remember the minute details of why you were so stressed. So when you're able to zoom out, you gain perspective, right? And I feel like it's not, you shouldn't be ashamed to be yourself, you know? Things will work out the way that they're meant to work out, you know, in the context of a job, for instance. You know, like I said, this company that I'm applying for now is a far better fit than the one before it. And if it works out, great, but if not, then I know that at some point when I've zoomed out and I look back on how things worked out, it'll make sense to me, you know? So don't be afraid to be yourself, you know? The fact that you're feeling like you're an imposter is probably a sign that you're scared and that you're growing. And if you're not scared while you're growing, you're probably not doing much to push forward. So it's normal, embrace it. It sucks sometimes, but it is what it is. Just keep pushing forward, and you'll be all right. Kind of just gave myself some advice, you know, like.
Oh, that was good. I was feeling that one. Thanks again, Josh, for all the wise words. That last part, I felt that one.
I got him.
Deep. You got him, man. But I appreciate you, you know, giving your point of view, your perspective, and your testimony. So if y'all like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with anybody who might find value in what you heard. Till next one.
That's a wrap.